I thought it would be nice if we started with something quick and easy and simple, like God. In particular, I don't believe there is one, and I have no idea what your thoughts are on it.
You mean the fact that you don't believe there is one?
No, I mean just about the subject in general, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts about what I don't think, well, maybe.
Well, it's a complicated problem, and I don't think we take it with due seriousness. I especially don't think the celebrity atheist types, whom I actually have a fair bit of respect for, by the way, take it with due seriousness. So I don't think they take it with due seriousness from a biological perspective, or from a phenomenological perspective, from a literary perspective, or a metaphoric perspective. That'll do for starters. I've become convinced that the fundamental presuppositions of our very functional cultures, Western cultures say, are nested immovably in a metaphorical substrate, and that when you enter that metaphorical substrate, you're in the domain of religious phenomenology. There's a deep issue here that we're not contending with. You know, here's an example. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think so. Well, I've thought about it a lot, and I do try to think about where I'm wrong, because I would like to figure out where I'm wrong, because then I wouldn't have to be wrong anymore, right? And being wrong is actually not a good thing. You fall into a pit when you're wrong.
And this is what I point out in the lecture on skepticism, since you didn't get to see the show. Being wrong feels exactly like being right. Nobody runs around going, oh, I'm wrong, but I'm gonna keep believing this. We all assume we are correct about a great many things, and it's not so much that being wrong is the thing we're afraid of. I think being exposed as wrong is the thing we're afraid of.
Well, we're also sometimes afraid of being wrong, 'cause if you're wrong at a deep level, it can really hurt you.
Oh, I agree,
it can really take you apart. And so people don't like to be taken apart. Like if you're wrong about your wife, for example, that tends to be a very painful thing, and that's something worth pursuing. The celebrity atheist types, because I actually like that phrase, they don't seem to me to be contending with the real issues. They don't seem
What are the real issues?
Dostoevsky, he's a real issue. Tolstoy, he's a real issue. Carl Jung, 20 books and maybe 15 seminars. He's a real issue. Mircea Eliade, like there are some serious heavy hitters in the religious phenomenology domain. And my sense so far, I just finished reading all of Harris's book, for example. He doesn't contend with them at all. And it's like, for me, that's like being an evolutionary biologist and not being aware of Darwin. It's actually a big problem. It's not something you can hand wave away. Oh, Jung was a mystic. It's like, sorry, he was about as smart as Friedrich Nietzsche.
This is a question of, is it in fact the case? Is it consistent with reality that there is a God? And is it consistent with reality that there is a reason to believe there's a God? That's where the focus is primarily.
Yeah, and it's usually construed as a scientific issue.
Well, I would never construe it as a scientific issue, because science can't confirm the supernatural. We are blocked until somebody demonstrates a mechanism by which we can explore and confirm the existence of the supernatural, and then confirm that it actually can impact the natural world. We're stuck, which is why science relies on methodological naturalism.
You seem to be able to do with psychedelic drugs.
You seem to be able to do what with psychedelic drugs?
Well, everybody who takes them under reliable settings generally comes back and claims the presence of a mystical experience.
Yeah,
and
but
that seems to be duplicatable and replicable across cultures and labs with multiple different substances, the chemical constituents of which are known pretty well. It's part of this religious phenomenology, and to me that's just a set of facts. And we know that people have been using those substances to evoke mystical and religious experiences for who knows, 150,000 years. We can at least infer that, and we have no idea whatsoever how much of an effect the use of those substances has had on the metaphysical substrate of our culture. So what constitutes scientific data here is by no means clear. Here's an example
before
here.
The example.
Yeah.
As someone who's been high as a kite, I fully agree that people take drugs and report experiences that they describe as mystical or supernatural, just like people report other experiences as though they were religious or ghosts or whatever. We have no way of confirming that something mystical or supernatural actually
It stops
happens.
people from smoking.
You can stop smoking without any sort of supernatural intervention.
No, not really.
You can't stop smoking without any
There
supernatural.
aren't really any reliable chemical means for inducing smoking cessation, no. You can use a drug called bupropion. I think that's the one. It's whatever Wellbutrin is.
Is that supernatural?
No, you don't need a supernatural effect, but it doesn't work very well. But if you give people magic mushrooms, psilocybin, and they have a mystical experience, they have about an 85% chance of smoking cessation,
But
with one treatment.
Sure, but
Yeah, but that's kinda like evidence, you know?
It's
kinda like evidence.
it's evidence you can take mushrooms and increase your chance of quitting smoking.
No, it's
but
not. It's an indication that if you take mushrooms and you have a mystical experience, you'll stop smoking because it doesn't work
okay, if you take mushrooms and you have an experience that you describe as mystical, then you'll increase your chance. That doesn't tell me whether or not there was something to this notion that they had an experience that was supernatural in any sense.
Well, it's not definitive evidence.
It's not evidence at all.
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is.
No.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Hey.
That's wrong.
Sam Harris and I had an argument in Chicago about free will, and I was pointing out that he could walk over and step off the edge of the stage, or I could pick him up and carry him and drop him off the stage. In the end, the effect would essentially be the same, but the conflict between those two is everything that I describe as will, whether you want to call it free or not. That's what we value, that's what we care about. I would be responsible for that action. I would be acting in opposition to what the other agent wanted.
And there would be something hypothetically wrong about that.
Yes,
Okay, good.
it seems that you're talking a lot about. You haven't addressed the issue, and I'm not going to push back on it because I want to move on to some other stuff.
I'm getting there.
Whether or not there is good reason to believe there actually is a God, as opposed to whether there are good reasons for people to believe that there actually is
See,
a
there's
God.
a difference between thinking something and believing it, because to believe it, it has to be thought incarnated in some way. It has to be
See, for me,
embodied.
when I talk about it, belief is the state of being convinced that a proposition is true or likely true. Everything that I try to do, I tend to view in the form of propositional reasoning. So when we talk about the narrative...
Yeah, that's a problem, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can't reduce the world to a set of propositions.
Why not?
Oh, look.
Show me something that is true in the world that is not a proposition. Something that is demonstrably true that I could not put in a proposition.
That's easy. You sure you wanna go there?
I'm not afraid of anything.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong. But for years, I have this thing going where people will say they would be afraid of what we'd lose if we lost religion. And I say, demonstrate for me any benefit.
Oh, you'd lose art and poetry and drama and narrative story.
Why are there no godless artists and poets?
There are artists and poets who think they're godless.
So we might have crossed over into a problem area.
Yeah, no doubt.